It's hard to believe one mistake can hold so many people back from being successful in their data career. But I've been coaching data professionals for 7 years now. I see this consistently as one of the biggest problems data professionals have in order to make what I call the leap. The leap is from mid-level to senior positions to positions like principal, staff, distinguished data scientist, sort of the higher end researcher roles, or making the transition into leadership. This one problem holds so many people back. Let's talk about the symptoms. What are you seeing in your career that may indicate that you're suffering from this particular problem? The first is your learning path. There's a lot to learn in the data field. There's a lot to keep up with. It can feel like a struggle. You can be looking around saying there's just too much information to take in successfully. I can't learn all of this. And you're right. I had the same realization back in 2015, if you can believe it. At that point, the field was so broad that it was no longer possible for me to know everything. I couldn't be a data engineer, a data scientist, a machine learning engineer, a data analyst, understand ML ops, go back and forth between computer vision and natural language, decision support. There's just too much. I had to choose a direction for my career to go in. And I suffered from that scattered learning path that a lot of people have. And it's a symptom of one problem. So that could be something you're experiencing. The next thing is your career path feels scattered. You don't know what you want to do. There's 50 different opportunities in front of you because every data professional has a ton of opportunities. But you feel like you are always chasing the next thing and never reaching a destination. Like you are always working your way towards somewhere that you never get to. And that's the second big sign of this one issue. So what's the problem? It starts in our education. In those days in high school, college, post-grad even, the whole focus of education, why do you take a class? It's because you have a knowledge gap. There's something you don't know. And that sort of makes sense with education, right? If you don't know something, you need to fill it in so that you know it and you become more capable. And that's excellent. For the first 5 to 7 years of your career, it is great because you are filling in gaps. There are pieces of the puzzle that you don't understand. There are things you don't know how to do. You will continually adding these pieces to your overall capability set to get to the point where you're at that mid-level, that senior level, where you are capable of doing this data job at a very high level, solving very complex problems. And you need to incrementally improve your skills to make it to that point. And then you hit a plateau. And then you begin to feel scattered. And that's in your learning path, that's in your career path as well. And it's because you still have that holdover mindset where you are continuing to fill in gaps. But you are making a transition from intermediate to expert. Experts don't know everything. It was the same realization I had. I couldn't know everything, so I had to start making a decision about what I was going to get deep into. It is very good to have a broad background, but you are not going to become a data engineer just because you have a basic understanding of data engineering or you learn a little bit about it. It's great to know a little bit, but that's not something that's going to propel you to the next stage in your career. It may even derail your career. Same thing with ML engineering. If you're not in ML engineering, if that's not your career path, well, then it's good to know, but that's not the focus. And this is the mindset change that must happen in order for you to break through that plateau. You're no longer going to be filling in gaps. You're going to be going deeper and creating advantages, creating expertise. When you focus on filling in gaps, you are continually focusing. What's a gap? You're focusing on weaknesses. You're perpetually trying to eliminate weaknesses. And that's like playing whack-a-mole. Every time you kick one weakness down, you're going to find 8 others behind it, because that's what happens in traditional education. You learn calculus and you realize there are 8 other types of math right behind it that you're just not proficient at yet. You're no longer at the top because you've learned calculus. You realize you're at the beginning when you've learned the calculus. That's how aiming your career at gaps becomes a pitfall and creates this plateauing effect where you feel scattered, because every time you learn a major concept, you realize there is so much else underneath it that you don't know. And so you can spend years becoming this massive generalist. But what you're not doing is developing a compelling reason, a competitive advantage, and expertise in a certain area that makes you good enough to go from senior to principal staff, distinguished, or even take on your first leadership role. You're not creating advantages because you're focused on weaknesses. And that is the one thing that's going to prevent you from moving forward. So how do you fix this? How do you change from being weakness focused to focusing on your strengths and developing deep expertise? Like I said, great to have that sort of generalist background at the top level, but that is not going to be the goal of your learning path. Those are almost hobby type learnings where you understand something that's tangential a little bit better. So that's not necessarily bad. It isn't something that you want to stop, but that's not going to be your focus. Your focus must be on your strengths. What capabilities do you have that set you apart, that put you in that top quartile or top 10%, top decile of that particular area of expertise? Because those are the people that make it to, it's that top quarter or 25%. Those are the people that make it to the next level role. And so it's not about continuing to be a generalist and more of a generalist, because generalists don't get promoted past senior. That's the realization. You are promoted as an expert, not as a generalist. So if you're a decent data engineer, data scientist, and machine learning engineer, that means you are qualified for a mid-level role in all 3 of them, but not a principal or distinguished level role in any one of them. So can you see the problem? What you have to do to develop expertise is focus on your competitive advantages, your strengths. What are you really good at? What do you enjoy? What is the common theme throughout your career that has always been the thing that you've been complimented on, always the reason why people want you on their team, the type of questions that they come and ask you? Those are going to give you an indication of your specific strengths. What is it that you do better? And others, external feedback is going to give you a good sense of that. And it really is. It's around those areas where I talked about, where someone's coming to you, the reason you're on this team, what everyone respects you for, that thing that you just excel at will be very obvious. That will define your strengths. Now, once you know what your strengths are, look at what around those strengths, what knowledge that could be new, but that's very related to those strengths could make you better, would make you even stronger, which will take you from that intermediate level to the expert level. Identify those gaps. There won't be many. And that's what is sort of a mindset shift. Is you look at the areas that you're very, very good at and you think, well, I'm already great there. Why would I spend more time? Because those are your strengths. As you move to become an expert along those strengths, you become more valuable as an individual contributor. You are now making yourself more valuable by doing smaller incremental learning rather than going on and learning all of these brand new topics. What should you follow? What avenues in the field, these developments, because there's thousands of developments happening all around us all the time. That focus and that area of expertise is going to be the one that you want to keep abreast of. Keep track of all of those developments. If you choose a research path in data science, what area of research? What are you great at? Is it something about marketing? Is it decision support? Are you great with supply chain use cases? What type of research? What type of data do you specialize in? Any one of those can inform your competitive advantage and focus not only your career, but also your learning path into a simpler direction. It feels like you're doing less, but you are in the process becoming more valuable because you're making that jump from intermediate to expert to principal staff distinguished. That's the differentiation. It's when you stop filling in every gap that you see. You stop being so scattered and disconnected. You stop having 18 different career interests. You begin to narrow it down, and you worry about that, don't you? You're afraid that if you're not this absolute generalist, no one will hire you because you don't have enough breadth. And that's not true. They won't hire you for those roles that you're in right now. That's how you got to where you are now. Very important lesson. The skills that got you to this point are not the same as the habits, behaviors, and skills that will get you to the next level. That's where you have to begin to focus on your strengths and continuously develop these strengths until you are one of the top experts, when there is almost no way to replace you. In any business that has the type of problems that you solve better than anyone else, you are the obvious choice, and you have a crazy high value at that point. But the worry is, oh no, I've only got a smaller number of prospects. That's a good thing. Your career is now focused on a particular set of customers or businesses who you are going to have the highest possible value proposition to. What does that mean? You get paid the most. They're going to be the most incentivized and enthusiastic about hiring you. They will compensate you because you are better than anyone else at meeting their need. You have that advantage of playing to your strengths. And there's not a lot of competition. When you're at that top level, if a company needs someone at your level, there won't be a whole lot of alternatives. That shifts your career from this very broad to specific, specialized, expertise, higher value, better value proposition, less competition. Those are all critical to making that next step. If you're worried about narrowing down your prospects, realize, just think about this logically. Are there more mid-level and senior level positions than principal, distinguished, staff? Well, yes. There are fewer positions available to you. Fewer people are going to make it to that next level. It requires a deeper expertise. So no matter what, you will always be narrowing your career prospects as you advance. There are a lot more managers than there are VPs. There are more VPs than there are C-level executives. This is the nature of career progression, is your opportunities get smaller and smaller and smaller, fewer and fewer. And in order to get the opportunity that you want, you have to be better and significantly better than any other alternative, which is that level of expertise. Being a generalist will only get you so far in your career. You must switch your mindset from emphasizing your weaknesses and always trying to fix what isn't there, fill in the potholes and the gaps. You have to switch from that sort of educational thinking to a more focused, strengths-based career, where you identify those things that you are better than anyone else at, and you focus your learning path and career trajectory on leveraging what you are exceptional at and marginalizing those things that you're weak at. You get to the point where you simply ignore them because they're not part of your value proposition. They actually distract from your value proposition. So it's critical to make this transition, it's really transformation in your career, going from a generalist to a specialist expert who's able to capture those higher level roles because you've made the shift in mindset. You've decided that you are going to be better than others and focus on your strengths instead of your weaknesses.